Hi there, Sam Sorbo here. If you've always wanted to go to Israel and it's one of those things on your bucket list and you think, that's just never going to happen, change your way of thinking. If you will it, you can do it. And our trip, the Sorbo Israel trip, and it's, by the way, sorboisraeltrip.com online. We call it Follow the Light in the Footsteps of Jesus. We're walking in the footsteps of Jesus in Israel, my husband and I. Our kids are joining us again for the second time. We've got other people who joined us on the first trip joining us for the second time. And you can be one of the people who will be new to the group and will be embraced by the group. We just have such a phenomenal time. So go to sorboisraeltrip.com and consider it. It's May 17th through the 28th of 2023. We've got a great itinerary. You can see everything online, but set your sights on that. Make a plan. Get signed up soon because tickets are running out. We're running out of space, and we'd love to include you. So go online, sorboisraeltrip.com, and check it out and join us. You will not regret it. Israel is an amazing place, and it is truly one of those bucket list things. So I really encourage you to take it seriously and come with us. And welcome back to the Sam Sorbo Show. I'm now here with a favorite person of mine. So I gave a speech. It was my very first speech publicly, my very first public speech. Several years back, obviously. And I was followed by this gentleman who gave a speech that just floored me. He had no notes. I guess he jotted down a couple things because he wanted to remember them right before he went up there. And I was so blown away with the way that he presented and the things that he said. And he makes presentations every day to high schools. He travels the country and talks to high school students. My guest is Bradlee Dean. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Sam. I totally appreciate your trust. And as a matter of fact, I remember that first date, and I didn't know that that was your first speaking engagement. And that was in Arizona, if I remember right, with Movie Guide's Ted Baer. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, and it hailed and it snowed in Taos, I think it was. Anyway, yes, but the really amazing thing was you getting up and just laying the smack down, and I was just blown away because of the way you spoke. But tell us, you do radio, Sons of Liberty Radio. So you're very involved. You're very vocal in getting the word out. What is your primary message? What is the thing that you're trying to tell people?
Well, I bring about resolve to the issues that Americans face. I mean, all day long on Christian radio and all day long on conservative radio, what do we hear? We hear what the problems are. Well, we're a country that's received our rights from under God, the Declaration of Independence. And if we received our rights from God, he's also the one that told us that we're going to have to fight the good fight of faith to bring about the resolve. And what's the church's job, Sam? We're to reprove darkness, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against the church. So we're supposed to be on the offensive, bringing the answers to the world, Isaiah 58, verse 12, not bringing the problems to the world. So my end aim is to bring about the resolve to the issues that we face, because I believe that we can win the day in this country, regardless of how many lies that we're inundated with by the mainstream media, or even those that call themselves the good guys out there. I just believe that if we're a part of the good fight of faith, that we're going to win the day. And that's my objective, is to do just that. I mean, we can't expect a victory if we're not willing to fight the good fight. And that's really what it comes down to. A famous preacher once said that if you want to win your country, God is willing to give you that victory if you're willing to get in the fight. That's all I've ever known. Is to be in that fight. And I've not seen him fail me yet. And I can pretty much trust the fact that he's not going to fail me. So with that said, we're going to keep going on.
Yeah, but when you spoke that first day, and I know you've continued to do this, you talked about how you speak to young people, because you go into high schools and first of all, they see this rocker dude with long hair, tats. Do you have full sleeves on both arms? Like you're tatted up, baby. Like
Yeah,
you're pretty hardcore in the sense of, wait, he's talking about the Jesus guy? What's that about, right?
yeah,
And you're offering these kids who have been basically orphaned by the school system. Oh, that's a new phrase. I got to write that one down. They've been force orphaned by the school system to believe that there is no God, and there's no purpose to life. And so they're looking for purpose. And you go in, you go, hey, I got your purpose right here, in
that's
fact.
right.
And it's about the fight.
Yeah, it is. There, and listen, that's where the life's at. It may be surreal to others, but it's very real and tangible to me. But that's where you find your life is in the middle of the fight. And what's interesting about going into public schools and kind of piggybacking what you just got done saying, it's interesting that the young people in public schools have been subjected to everything and protected from nothing. And one of the things, Sam, that we've always done is after April 20th, 1999, when Eric and Dylan walked into the school and shot it up in Columbine, I started to notice that everybody was running from the schools rather than to the schools. Then I started to do my homework, and I found out that 86% of the people that are sending their kids to public schools are professed Christians, conservatives, and or patriots. So I've seen a whole lot of hypocrisy going on there. And again, I wanted to be a part of the answer. And the way that we do that is we show them where they came from. Woodrow Wilson, love him or hate him, he was right when he said, if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. And what we want to do is we want to give them some history as to where they came from so they do know where they're going. And really the end aim here is the resolve in showing the young people the price paid for their freedoms. Because once you show them the price paid for their freedoms, all of a sudden everything starts to make sense. And those kids now understand that somebody sacrificed themselves to give them the freedoms that they want or that they have. And when you show them that, all of a sudden everything comes into perspective and they say to themselves, you know what, I got to take responsibility here and live for what those men died for.
Plus, it's the grand adventure, right? Is to have a cause, to Man of La Mancha or what have you, like to have that purpose of your life. And the way that kids grow up now without in school, I should say, without that purpose, right? When you go in there and you offer them a purpose and even Jordan Peterson talks about this, and he talks about how, look, I mean, he started as he was a college professor. He was mildly successful, and all of a sudden there was a cause that was put before him where it was demanded that he use certain language, and he said, you may not demand that I use language. That's you don't put words in my mouth. The one thing that he knew was you don't put words in his mouth, right? And so he started to make a stand, and then of course after that it all blew up. So he embarked on this speaking tour, and he realized that by giving these young men, predominantly young men, okay, a reason to fight, a cause to fight for, and it's so simple for them. It starts so simply because they're just fighting for a better life. Make your life better by making the lives of the people around you better, which is, of course, in a sense, the message of Jesus Christ.
Yes, it is.
Right. But you give that to these young men, and they start to try. And then when they start to try, they get that endorphin kick or the serotonin kick, right? When they accomplish a small thing. And it just sets them on the right track. And that's really what you're trying to do. What's amazing is the nation that we live in that affords us the freedom to actually do that. When you live in a foreign country where they don't have those freedoms, you get very cynical very easily, and then you don't do crap.
Yeah, well, it's pretty amazing to me. The first thought that comes to my aid is the fact that we have, churches all over the country spending literally trillions of dollars a year to preach a gospel in other countries, namely third world countries, that they fail to preach to their own kids in their own backyards. The greatest demographic that we have in this country is our public schools, and those kids are ours. The state has no children. And when the American people begin to understand that we, the people, are the government in this country, they're going to begin to see the violations of not only federal government, but also state government when it comes to how comes to the fact as to how they're indoctrinating our kids. They're not educating our kids. They're indoctrinating them to make them good slaves in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, we could engage on that all day long. You know where I stand on that. And I've been on your show talking about that. So absolutely. The question is how the kids respond to your message. And do you think that you are engendering future homeschoolers?
I don't think there's any question about it. I've done schools where there's been 3,200 students to 50 students to 300 to 500 to 750 students. I don't think there's ever been a school, Sam, where when I'm doing my thing, as some might call it, it's interesting. I can hear for 3 hours a pin fall to the floor because I have their absolute attention. And it's amazing how the Holy Ghost will do that. Now, I want to say this. When I get out there, we play music. I mean, we're the best Christian unsigned band in the country, and we've been working with Geffen Records and Warner Brothers and so on and so forth. So I'm not trying to be something that I'm not. This is really who I am. And I go in there, we play music, we win the respect.
You're a rock star.
Well, not really, but here's the point. And even if I was, I wouldn't give attention to that because the rock star is the Christ. He's the one that's going to be crowned at the end of the day in my ministry, and he always has been. But when we do the schools, the first thing I'll do is I'll ask the young people, so what is it when it comes to our foundations? Do you know your founding documents, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution? They laugh at me along with the teacher faculty, right? And then the next question I ask them, which brings it home right away. So how many in this room, you just got done laughing at me because you didn't know your founding documents. How many in this room have had grandpas, have had dads, uncles, cousins, neighbors, brothers, friends, whatever the case might be, that fought, bled, and died in foreign wars to give you the freedoms that you have? And right after I say that, all of a sudden it's just like it's on. I have their attention for 3 hours, and at the end of the 3 hours, I show them the price paid for their freedoms. And I'll tell you what, you have a completely, concerning the whole audience, the whole Lyceum, even including the teachers, you have a whole different perspective when we leave there because we see a conversion among the people that never understood that someone paid the ultimate price to give them the freedoms that they have today. And they want to live differently just because of that. But this is the information that's being hid from the American the Americans, the young people, the old people. It's the information that's being hidden from the church, which is Christ crucified, which is the pearl of the church. But again, it's just a message that's so empowering. Nobody has to go into a public school and beat them over the top of the head, because we all understand that God speaks to the heart, not the head. And that's exactly what happens every single time we do a high school assembly.
How do you get your engagements?
Well, we're asked by someone locally if they call us up or if they hear us on the radio and they want us to come to a high school. They'll call us up, and then we'll make a connection between those that do the booking here and then the principal, and then we kind of lay on him that we were invited by someone in your community to come to a high school assembly, and then we give them referrals. We just drive them over to sonsoflibertyradio.com, and we want people to know from others as to who we are and what the fruit of the ministry's been, rather than us kind of giving ourselves accolades. So once we do that, the doors open up, and almost again, Sam, every time we get another invitation to come right back to the same school the next year and the next year and the next year. We did one school in South Dakota where we went back 3 times the same year. So it's amazing how this works. We just got to love on the young people enough to actually stand up and fight for them, because everybody will hear that love in action. 1 John 3:18. And I got to say, on the flip side of that, it's interesting how the young people in this country, they hear about love all the time, but they see very little of it. They're trying to figure out why they're thrown into a cesspool of indoctrination in public schools. We don't want to be a part of the problem. We want to be a part of the answer, and that's exactly what happens. So we get re-invited over and over and over again, and then the word spreads. And then also what helps is when the media comes down, and it's interesting how no matter where I'm at doing a high school assembly program, it's interesting to note that the mainstream media always knows where I'm at, Sam. And so is the local news outlets. But when they come in, they like to defame, they like to bring about malicious intent, they like to pervert my meanings, my saying. So we record everything. And with that, what they don't realize is they're actually giving me a big platform, a bigger platform every time they attack us. You can just ask the New York Times and MSNBC, CNN, and the list goes on. Because if it wasn't for their lies and their attacks, I wouldn't have a national platform right now. So I'm very grateful for the mainstream media.
Well, that's awesome. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to ask you about what's happened to the students since you started this ministry so many years ago, about the follow-up with that and some other questions about home education. So stay with me. This is the Sam Sorbo Show. I'll be right back. Hi, this is Sam Sorbo. Kevin and I have discovered a great American company that supports our traditional values and the work we're doing to restore our culture from the lies of the left. Check out sorbo.nutramedix.com for great health wellness products like my favorite. They have a stress support kit, which I use every day. And I have to say, it really does help. So check it out at sorbo.nutramedix with an X, nutramedix.com. And don't forget to use the code SORBO at checkout. Thanks for listening. And welcome back. This is the Sam Sorbo Show. My guest is Bradlee Dean. He's with Sons of Liberty Radio. You can go to sonsofliberty.com. And we're talking about the ministry that he has in our public schools, where he goes in. He's in a rock band. Are you lead guitarist or you're the drummer?
I'm the drummer guy.
Yeah, that's right. But you basically, it's a show, but it's also a ministry to show these kids their worth and their potential.
That's right.
And the potential of the nation at the same time. I just had Katie McFarland on the show, and she's very optimistic, like crazy optimistic, because she says the United States goes through this little bit of a revolution rebirth every 40 years. And so she just believes we're basically in one of those sort of reinventing ourselves kinds of transitions. We certainly went through it with Reagan after Carter in a way. And we typically, what happens is we come back and we see how great this nation is if they haven't been able to denigrate it so much in our eyes. And she's actually very happy with what's happening with the control that has been and the manipulation that's been happening, especially in our schools, with the Loudoun County moms coming out and saying, no, wait a minute. And then them being called domestic terrorists and then being persecuted, basically just for standing up for their kids.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about the kids that you've ministered to, but are you seeing a shift at all as you travel with the involvement of the parents? And do you invite parents to your shows?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's their objective. I mean, if I'm going into a public schools or a public school system, it's the parents that sent them there in the first place. So if they want to come see the Lyceum, it's all open and it's very public. We're not hiding anything because we're not doing anything unlawful. But what I see with the young people is these young people today, Sam, they discern like nobody's business. And they know that they're being lied to. The question they ask, by the way, I have video after video after video after assemblies where kids just bum rush me and they ask me at the end of the assembly, what are we supposed to do? So the kids are having to be left with a decision as to what they're supposed to do, not knowing as to how they're supposed to respond to the indoctrination that's going on. And it's illegal indoctrination, don't mind you. It's a violation of the 10th Amendment. So the young people want to know, why is it that we're being sent into a public school in the first place to be indoctrinated? So what they're actually creating is a bunch of defiant kids because they already know that they're being lied to, and nobody likes to be lied to. So this is in a lot of ways backfiring. I did a high school assembly just even concerning the topic of abortion in Kabul, Missouri. Highest crystal methane rate in the country, highest pregnancy rate in the country. I did the high school assembly. I showed a picture of, do you know little Samuel Armis?
Highest teen pregnancy rate? Is that what
Yeah,
we're
that's
saying?
right.
high school pregnancies.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
Go
right.
ahead.
In the country, and the highest crystal methane rate. Well, what's interesting is I showed a little picture of the famous Samuel Armas, where he puts his hand outside of the doctor's room where they were going to fix his back. Remember, he got spinal bifida. And what's interesting, I showed the picture to the young people. There were 700.
Sorry, people don't necessarily know that. So it was a fabulous photo that was taken of a baby reaching outside the womb. They had opened the womb in order to mend the baby's spine, and the baby's hand came out and grabbed the finger of the doctor.
That's right.
And so, and it just showed the humanity of the baby inside the womb before it was born, that there was such humanity that the little baby wanted to hold the thing. It's not just a clump of cells.
That's right.
Yeah.
So with that said, I showed that to the school body, the teacher faculty. Okay. Everybody was totally fine with it, except the principal. I have 700 students and teacher faculty in front of me. He comes out in the middle of my program and he says, if this offends anybody, you can leave. Now, just to show the people, let them hear and see for themselves as to what's going on in public schools. Well, he thought that everybody was going to be on board, that they were offended by that picture. Well, we had one teacher and her daughter stand up and walk out. So I still have 698 people in front of me right now that are in favor of what I just showed them. The principal said, if this offends you, you can leave. Nobody left except the teacher and the student. He walks back out. I stood there and I just said, are we really in this time right now where we can't even advocate for life? We can advocate for murdering innocent babies in the womb, but when we advocate for life, there's a problem with that. Well, he didn't like that neither. So 2 or 3 minutes later, he comes out. He said, the assembly program is over. Okay. There's an emergency at the school. It's happened a couple times. Now listen to this. This is what they don't want people to hear. How did the teachers respond? How did the young people respond? They stood up. They gave me a standing ovation. I had about 200 or 300 students walk up to me right after that happened. They apologized for their principal, even having the coach go behind the big speakers and say to us, don't ever quit doing what you're doing. I said, I'm not going to quit doing what we're doing. But that's where the young people really laid on me. What are we supposed to do? Yeah. And there's no reason why the young people are having to make that decision. That's the parents' decision, but the parents are the ones handing them over to a school system like that they are in fact defying. They are defying in a righteous way, and they have every right in the world to do so, Sam.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've been, since COVID started, I've been advocating. It's funny because the teachers unions want the schools to stay closed. And I'm like, it's so weird. I'm on the side of the teachers union. How did that happen?
Yeah.
And I've been advocating for parents to just keep your kids home from school. Do not put a mask on that child. There is absolutely no medical call to mask a child, and things of that nature. If parents just chose to keep their children home, it would starve the school of money. That would force the school to behave, but you have to be willing to make that so-called sacrifice,
right,
in just keeping your child home for a week, and stage it. Go with some other parents and stage the sit out, basically, and you'll starve the school of its funds. And that's why the teachers unions are now putting through, they're trying to get through legislation that says that, oh no, the school's not funded per child. The school gets funded regardless of the number of children that it serves. And this is how things go off the rails, is they mitigate for reasonableness. They mitigate against reasonableness in order to preserve the status quo, when the status quo is shifting sand, right? So so you have the kids who are, they've become their own advocates, which is sad because they're kids and they shouldn't necessarily be called to do that. Although in high school, I think it's a good calling. I think it's about time that they start to learn, in any case, to stand up for themselves. I wonder what happened to that principal. If I were the student body, I would have organized some kind of campaign.
I would have not want. I wouldn't have want to have been that principal at the end of the day, because it wasn't just the students; it was also the teachers. It was great for us to see that, but we already knew that. You know, even speaking of the topic of abortion, Sam, it's interesting that when you show kids infanticide, you show them what the teachers, some of the teachers, a couple of the teachers advocate for. It's interesting how when you show those pictures, those advocates for abortion don't want the young people to see what they're advocating for, right? Well, we're not asking the devil for permission to obey God here. So we show the young people, right? We show the young people, Sam. And you know what the young people, you know how they respond to abortion, to infanticide when they see it? They're cry.
Disgusted.
They
cry, of course.
They're brokenhearted because they can't believe that the older generation is actually tolerating the murder of their own children in the womb.
It's more than tolerating, celebrating.
There you have it.
Celebrating.
Yeah.
And I mean, we need to be very clear on that. And those are the people who and by the way, there's an entire political party whose platform is foundationally based on that, right? That celebration.
Yeah, well,
and we ought
God
to be very clear
us,
on that.
Yeah, God doesn't give us the right to violate his law. So it's not right. It's policy which undermines law. And I think people have, you know, overall across the boards, I think people have gotten sick and tired of being sick and tired of what's going on in this country. I can feel it in the air. It's thick and it feels that people are on their last leg as to what's going on in this country. And when I see what's going on in public schools, it blows me away that anybody would send their kid to be indoctrinated by their sworn enemies. That bewilders me. It blows me away. But then again, where I see the problem, I also have to be a part of the answer, and that's exactly why we're doing high school assemblies.
Right, and I love that because I mean, that speaks to my heart. I applaud parents who go in for school boards and try to change the school boards. Good luck with that. It's systemic. The apple is rotten all the way from the core out at this point. The school books have the indoctrination in them. The teachers are all indoctrinators because they've been schooled that way. And the system itself is anti-education. And I've been going on about that. And I'll tell you, just to chat for a minute, I just wrote a piece about this because I talk to conservatives and they're staunch conservatives and they spend a lot of money on conservative causes and funding political campaigns. Okay. So they get it. They understand. And when I walk them through the problems with our education system and why no child really belongs in school, they agree with me. And then I find out their kid goes to school. And they say, oh, no, our child goes to it's our local public school, but it's great.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I say to them, okay, define great. I need to know, like, what's the mitigating factor where you're the one exception to a rule that you just approved, like the rule that you just, agreed with. And their answer is, well, our child really likes it, or the sports are awesome, or my favorite so far is, well, it's where we went to school. We met there. And I'm like, surely you don't think that the school is the building that's instructing your children. Like there's an entire disconnect. And what I've realized is I'm up against trying to convince people that they do not need the thing that they've been taught during all their formative years that they need above all. And that is the school. And the school teaches us that we need it. And then when it comes time to disband, to decouple, right? We can't. It's like our security blanket.
Yeah. Well, let me add something to that, Sam. Do you know how many times I've heard parents complain about their kids that they have in public schools? Luke 7:35 says, wisdom is justified by her children. So those kids that they're complaining about are a reflection of the way that they've been allowed to be raised.
Of course.
So I have to look at the parents and say, I don't understand, you're complaining about your kids, but yet they're a reflection of who you are and what you've allowed them to be raised under. And it really shows them that they're not going to justify the unjustifiable.
Well, our culture has adopted this mentality that your kids are, you know, we're actually trying to figure out, are your kids really your responsibility? Do you have to take responsibility if they misbehave? I mean, we're at that stage now because our
Yeah.
culture has sort of condoned this offloading of parental responsibilities onto the schools. And the schools have said, hey, we're gonna quote unquote, we'll educate your children, but we're not the responsible ones, because every time a parent has sued a school for not teaching their child how to read, the
Mhm.
judge has always found, no, it's the parent's responsibility to teach
That's
the
right.
child how to read. So the
Amen.
parent thinks, oh, I've delegated that responsibility. No, you haven't. No, you
Yeah.
haven't.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the Bible says that we're supposed to raise up our children in the ways that they go.
Well,
So when
amen
they're
to
old, they will
that.
not depart from it. Doesn't say hand them over to your sworn enemies and have them raise them up. And again, it's just a reflection of what's being tolerated. And I see it, like I said, I see it all the time. And I see that the parents try to justify their high schools all the time.
Well,
And
like,
every single event, I'll cover that. How is it, what's going on in public schools? Every single event, I'll have one or two parents come up to me and say, our school's different, our school's
Yes.
different. And I got to let them know, no, it's not. I've heard superintendents and principals tell me every 3 to 7 years, the science books are being changed, the history books are being changed. You can't justify it. And of course,
Yeah,
then I
you
become their
can't.
arch enemy.
You can't say, oh, we don't have Common Core because our textbooks don't say Common Core aligned. They scraped off the sticker. The
Yeah.
textbooks changed. The textbook, if your textbook is within the past 10 years, it's Common Core aligned, period, full stop.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I'm with you. I mean, again, that's why we're in the fight, and that's why we're going to continuously do the things that we're doing. And I guess we're going to be back.
I want to say, I've had so many parents say to me, when I had 3 teenagers, now I have a 20-year-old, but they sort of roll their eyes when they hear I have 3 teenagers, and they say, wow, yeah, that's tough, right?
Yeah.
And I look at them and I say, I have no idea what you're talking about. And they were like, well, teenagers. No, that's the school that engenders that whole problem. I don't have any issues with my teenagers. My teenagers are fabulous people.
Yeah.
And I have a remarkable relationship with them. We sit every morning and have breakfast and chat. I mean,
Amen.
it's like,
well, let me up you, Sam. Let me up you, Sam. I got 5 boys.
Yeah.
And I every once in a while I'll hear the same things. Oh my goodness, 5 boys. Ma'am, they're a blessing. They're not a curse. And the fact of the matter is, we're going to either enjoy them or we're going to hand them off. So which one do you think is going to bring up good children in the sense of the household? Are we going to give them over to strangers, or are we going to raise them up on our own? And again, it just comes back to taking responsibility for what's going on out there. But same here, same with my kids. Listen, you don't get one without the other. Wherever we go, they're going as well. And that's just a part of who we are in this ministry.
Your kids, because you've got a big bus and you travel with the kids. And I've been to your place. I got a chance to tour it a little bit. I saw where you did school and where you lived and and the bus was very cool. And you're a great example for people. So and I know you can go to sonsoflibertyradio.com. Is there anywhere else where you talk to people or people can reach you?
Well, we do radio 2 to 3 Central Standard Time on sonsoflibertyradio.com. We're broadcasting into about 155 cities. We're the #1 and the #2 show. Not that that means anything, but it's pretty cool that people are taking the time to listen to us. And I want to tell you why they're listening to us is because we're bringing about the resolve. We're bringing about the biblical and the constitutional answers to the issues that we face. And if we, the people under God, want to take responsibility, we can do this. And I believe we can, because if I didn't, I wouldn't get up every day and do it all over again. So sonsoflibertyradio.com. Saturdays we're on from 2 to 4 Central Standard Time as well. And we're just going to keep going on as long as we have the time to do so, Sam.
It's just great. I really appreciate being in this fight together with you, Bradlee Dean.
You too.
Thanks so much. Thanks for coming on the show. This is the Sam Sorbo Show. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.